Welcome to the Serendipitous Rebel podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Crystal. This podcast is for the adventure-loving, purpose-driven, action-minded, authentic, and rebellious entrepreneurs.
Just like us. And just like you, we are trying to figure shit out. So join us as we talk about business and life and everything in between.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Crystal and I am here lounging on workcation with
Wendy. Hi.
Woo-hoo. We have been really working on the Serendipitous Rebel business model and business plans. This core foundation of what it is that we do at Serendipitous Rebel is purposeful pivoting, as we help entrepreneurs with purposeful pivoting and
ourselves.
And ourselves, because Serendipitous Rebel was born out of pivoting
Purposefully.
And so we felt the need to really jump on and define what is purposeful pivoting. And so we have the Serendipitous Rebel definition of purposeful pivoting,
which I will share now. So purposeful pivoting, it's connecting with what matters and taking committed action in order to make a bigger impact in the world. I have to say that sounds just fabulous. But if I'm in an elevator and I have like less than 30 seconds, let's define it a little differently and then we can break it down.
So what does that mean? So when we work with entrepreneurs on purposeful pivoting, when we ourselves took a purposeful pivot, what did we do?
First piece of this is connecting with what matters. And that is the purpose part of it. It's really digging in to what gets us out of bed in the morning, what lights our fire in our businesses or in our business, and to really look at it with a really fine lens as to how does this connect with what matters in our lives. So I think that's the first piece of it. Mm-hmm. And when we work with clients, and it's interesting because over the next few days, we're going to be re-looking at our values, our strengths, both individually and as a partnership. And also, and taking those values and strengths and vision and turning it into what is our purpose. I think that's so important that, when you have a purpose, you can work harder, you can work longer. There's things that you can do because you have the resilience to get shit done, because in the back of your mind, you always know this is what I'm working towards, or this is who I'm working for, or whatever the purpose is.
Yeah, it's the motivation to do what it is that you want to do. So some coaches will call it, what is your why?
Yeah.
Some people will say, what is your purpose? What is your motivation? However it is that you want to define that. Mm-hmm. When you connect with what matters, it's such a key first part of this definition. It is the motivation. It's why you get out of bed anymore. Mm-hmm. It's why you do things like expense reports and bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Because you need to keep the lights on. It's why you do the not so fun things in your business that nobody likes. Mm-hmm. Somebody out there likes doing operations, but it certainly is not one of us. And it's why you do those things, because you're trying to grow something with a purpose.
Exactly.
And it can't be rooted just in money.
I think for some people, if you dig deeper, there may be extenuating circumstances that it is money, but I think it's really getting to that core why. I worked with someone who money was the thing. Why? Well, ultimately, she wanted to make sure that her sister was taken care of.
So, but the motivation is not
the motivation
money.
Isn't necessarily money, right?
It's security
right.
in some other
exactly. Yeah. After you look at connecting with what matters, it's the next part is the taking committed action. And that is so important. That's where you set goals and then you work towards achieving them. You set up systems that allow you to really focus more on your why, what matters, but you have systems in place and you're taking these actions to start, to grow, to develop, whatever it is, your business in a way that works best for you. This is the piece that I think that sometimes not everyone buys into, but for us and the clients that we want to work with, it really is making a bigger impact in the world.
And what was funny about that was when we first said that, we were like, oh, is that really what we want, to make a bigger impact in the world? Because I think some people hear that and they think you must want to have like a $4 million company with like 10,000 clients. No, that's not what we mean by big impact. What we mean by big impact is we want to have this ripple effect with clients who have a ripple effect of their own, who have a ripple effect of their own. And we want it a positive impact in the world. And that's part of the committed action piece. So it's not that we're just going to take action, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs take action. They sign up for 1,000 courses and they have like a ton of different tactics that they're purchasing and buying and trying to throw spaghetti on the wall to make work. Whereas committed action is very intentional. It's very laser focused. It is very laser focused on achieving that goal that fulfills that connection with what matters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you talk about a pivot in your business, a pivot can mean a lot of things. A pivot can mean that maybe you are working in the industry in the area you want, but you're not connected with what matters. You're not taking committed action. So when we say we want to work with entrepreneurs that have this purposeful pivot, that's the difference. And I think that's what led to our pivot.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Was that we were disconnected in what it was that we were doing and we were out of alignment. And so it took Wendy and I really digging down, because we've done multiple pivots in the last couple of years. I feel like that.
Thank you, COVID.
Thank you, COVID. But it really forced us to ask those really hard questions and dig into our purpose.
But I think these really hard questions are just so incredibly important. And it's interesting because also, when you think about the pivoting, most people think, oh my gosh, I'm going from a travel advisor to a business coach, going from, what may be one end of the spectrum to another, which if you think about it, could be a really huge shift change. But what it could actually be is a pivot could be a really close look at how many hours you work. And figure out that by systemizing, you can cut hours in order to be able to spend more time with whomever. Or it could be, sometimes it is, I want to make more money. Or sometimes it could be incorporating a new program or a shift to a program that you do. One of the things that we talk about or look at with us is, does travel, masterminding adventures or whatever we do, how does that incorporate in? Does it shift in? Does it shift out? That's a surprise. We're not telling at this point the answer to that.
That's true.
But, it could be simpler pivots that really allow, it can just be to allow you to better focus on what matters most.
Yeah. When I think about pivot, aside from thinking about Ross yelling, pivot, pivot, and Friends, and I have a bangle of a bracelet that says pivot on it, and it's got the Friends couch on it. Cute. And I got it when we did our first big pivot and when I closed my travel business. And because when I did that pivot, it was at a time, we joked earlier, thanks COVID, but there were all these things happening in the world in 2020, and I needed to make a pivot in my business. While at the same time, a lot of people in the industry, and not just travel, but I think in the world as a whole, was really resisting the idea of pivoting because ultimately what pivot means is change. And people really struggle with change, myself included. So I hired a coach. I hired Wendy, guys, because I needed to make a change, and it was scary and it was hard, but it was time to pivot.
One of the things that I have found, and I'm not sure why, but in a lot of instances, I've found that coaches are hesitant to lead people through or to say it's time to pivot. And it was interesting because there were also like influencers out in the world over the past couple of years who were like mocking people. Pivoting, what's pivoting? And it really, to me, is detrimental. I like to think, and maybe it's the rebelliousness in me, but I like to think that at least every 6 months, if not every quarterly, to really take a look at what it is you're doing and see, and you don't want to call it a pivot, call it a shift, call it a tweak. I mean, kind of like whatever the fuck you want to call it. But I think it's really important to stay on target and in alignment with what what you want to do, and not get lost. Well, I've always done it this way. It doesn't work that way anymore. If you truly want to be happy and successful, and maybe the way you've always done it really does work. Hey, that's amazing. That's fantastic. Don't change it if it's not broken. But at the same time, if it's broken or whatever, look towards how you can improve.
Well, and if it's not broken, then I feel like you're not asking yourself the right questions, because maybe the system's broken, but you're out of alignment somewhere else. So maybe the business is going great. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're working a multi-million-dollar business, but your personal life is suffering drastically, and your mental health is suffering drastically because you're just burnt the fuck out. And so again, it's time to pivot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And again, that's why I love this definition we've created for purposeful pivoting by connecting with what matters first.
And, it's interesting. So it's the values, it's the strengths, but one of the exercises that we also do, it's what they call the wheel of life. And, here are the various categories that most people find in their lives. And again, it's a great exercise to do. And if you go to Rebel on the Go, the Facebook group, the copy of the exercise is in there, but is to look at the various elements of your life and figure out where am I looking to improve? Maybe your business is so on target, but you're feeling like your social life is a little down. I think it's a wonderful tool to really take a look at your life holistically and make whatever necessary changes need to be made. And that's a little off target, a little off track. Sorry about that. Yeah. But I do think it's a critically important piece of, you look at your business. And I think that what a lot of us do is, if we're unhappy in one side, like, I'm really annoyed with my husband right now, I'm just going to work more hours. Or, I'm really, well, my husband doesn't listen to the podcast, hopefully. And I never do that, of course. But just things like that. Or, I really need to be more physically active, I'm going to work more hours. And I think that there just seems to be in our society a natural inclination to work more hours. And I think that being able to really say, I can make that shift, I can make that pivot, and it meets my purpose.
If you can, again, connect with what matters, that's bringing the balance into and bringing the whole world into alignment. And what I love about Wheel of Life is it is factoring in both the personal and the professional. Mm-hmm. That's the connecting with what matters. I think a lot of people, when we ask people the question, define your perfect day, we do a perfect day exercise with clients. I'm amazed how many people start with their working day. Mm-hmm. And I said, in your perfect day, you have done nothing fun for yourself. Now, some people, that is their perfect day, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
But I can tell you right now, if you ask me what my perfect day is, it does not involve a lot of bookkeeping or admin activity. Yeah. I think that, again, there's that question, there's a status quo or an expectation in society, especially in American culture, of work hard, work. I work hard to play hard. That's all well and fine. But again, taking that purposeful pivot is really, again, rooting into that connection with what matters. And I think it's a really big tipping point when people hit midlife.
Oh, no question.
This ends up being really imperative, where people are ready to make pivots.
Yeah.
I think when there's all kinds of things, and we'll do a whole other episode on how to know if it's time to pivot. It's all about the connection and then the taking committed action and then to make a bigger impact.
I could not agree more. That's a good thing, isn't it?
It's good because that's our definition.
I love it. Well, thank you all very much for joining us today. And we are going to see you again real soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about our upcoming masterminding opportunities on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.
Hey, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.